ASU football heads to Huntsville for a Southland Conference catfight. I'm Sharon Morosky.
And I'm Grant Boone. We'll look at the takeaways from last week's game at McNeese and get you ready for ACU and the Sam Houston State Bearcats. It's the Ken Collums Show right now. Welcome to Week 9 of the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. From the JMC Network studios on the campus of Abilene Christian University, I'm Grant Boone, joined by ASU junior Sharon Morosky and the head coach of the ASU football Wildcats, Ken Collums. Last Saturday night on the Bayou, ASU against number 10 in the nation, McNeese State, wound up being a hard-fought game, 31-20 in favor of the Cowboys. Coach, we went into that game. We sat right here on the set last week. And you talked about how good of a team, not just this year, but historically that McNeese State is and has been. You knew that from looking at film and looking at the history. Seeing them in living color, what do they look like?
Well, they look at least as good as they do on paper and in their history. You look on their scoreboard, and there's dates all over the place of them winning conference championships, go to the playoffs, and this and that. And you know, the fact is it's a historical program. You think of McNeese, you think of football.
Yeah.
And that's the level we're trying to get to. And sooner or later we'll be there.
The environment was
oh,
awesome.
The environment was awesome. You pull up onto their campus, and there are there are traffic cops directing people, and there are acres and acres of tailgaters, and it was a great atmosphere, great weather. We had a great trip down there. It was a long bus ride, but they're going to be in the Southland.
All right, looking to this week, how similar are the programs at McNeese and Sam Houston State?
Well, the fact is both of those schools, they go out and they expect to win every single game, and they can do that because they have done that in the past, and they know what they're doing. Great coaches, both teams. They've won a lot of games. They've recruited at this level for a long time. And so we are trying to get to where those guys are right now, and it starts with recruiting, and that'll be interesting, recruiting against those guys. We win some and we lose some against them, but ultimately those guys have put together enough depth to be able to play really, really well late in the year, and that's a key to this thing.
We'll talk about ASU and Sam Houston State a little bit later on in the show, but when we come back, highlights from that hard-fought game, ASU against McNeese State last Saturday night in Louisiana. Glad you're with us here on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. Welcome back to the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. ASU saddled up last week for a Saturday night ride with the Cowboys of McNeese State. Here's Daniel Zepeda to show us how the dust settled.
The Wildcats traveled out of Texas to take on McNeese State in Lake Charles, Louisiana last Saturday. As one of the top teams in the conference, ACU had its work cut out for them. After a 3-and-out by ACU, McNeese would go 68 yards in just 6 plays to go up 10-0 early on with this touchdown to get their homecoming crowd involved. The Wildcats jumped on the board in the second quarter with a 37-yard field goal by kicker Nick Grau. That made the score 17-3 Cowboys. On the McNeese ensuing drive, linebacker Justin Stevens would get to the quarterback and force the interception by defensive back Justin Stewart, who returned it all the way to the 34-yard line. It was Stewart's second interception of the year so far. Towards the end of the first half, the Wildcat defense was able to step up against the Cowboys offense, taking down the quarterback on this Justin Stevens sack. Wide receiver Cedric Gilbert would lead the team with 4 catches for 74 yards, including this high level of difficulty catch for 32 yards. With just seconds left in the second quarter, Justin Stevens would make this acrobatic interception to keep the Wildcats' deficit manageable, heading into halftime down 24-6. McNeese would come out of the half and drive right down the field and expand the lead on this 37-yard pass to put the home team up 31-6. but the ACU defense would come alive as they would force 4 turnovers in the second half and a grand total of 6 for the entire game. Defensive end Nick Richardson forced the fumble on his tackle here, and then the defensive line would break through to force the quarterback to fumble and give the ball back to ACU. Moving on into the fourth quarter, Justin Stewart would wrap up the running back on this play here and earn the strip and recover to keep the McNeese offense at bay. Freshman running back for the Wildcats, DeAndre Brown, was excellent, rushing for 109 yards on 16 carries for the afternoon. For Brown, it was his 3rd game of the year going over 100 yards rushing. Brown would take the handoff here and make it all the way into the end zone to record the first ACU touchdown of the afternoon. The Wildcats would still trail, however, 31-13. ACU would stick around in the fourth quarter as the defense forces yet another fumble. Defensive back Keith Barnett would recover and take the ball all the way down to the 2-yard line to set up a 1st and goal for the Wildcats. Parker McKenzie would find DeMarcus Thompson for the senior receiver's first catching touchdown of the season. McKenzie would finish the game 15 of 30 for 141 yards and would cut the score to ACU 20, McNeese 31. The Wildcats would get the ball back with about 3 minutes left in the game. On a 4th and 4, McKenzie would air it out to Gilbert for a big pickup, but the ball would hit off of the receiver's hands for an incompletion, sealing the Wildcats' fate in Lake Charles.
All right, thanks, Daniel. 31-20, the final score. Coach, you knew how good McNeese State was going in. They really looked the part, especially in that first quarter. Very first drive for them, their very first set of downs. You got them in a 3rd and 7. And the thing that you told me before the game that you were most concerned about, of all the good things they do, what happens when number 4, their quarterback, Daniel Sams, tucks it and runs it? Well, he ran it down inside your 20. Now, a penalty moved it back to the 50. But that seemed to foreshadow what was going to come the rest of the quarter. He's mighty tough, isn't he?
Sure. We actually on that 3rd and long had the perfect defense call. We had a guy in his face, just didn't make the tackle. He's a big, strong, athletic guy in the show. That's going to help us. That's going to help us this week as far as as far as preparing for an athletic guy. But they're good, and it's hard to plan against a guy who is going to tuck it and run it, because you can't plan for a certain gap, because the guy will just take off running, and that's the positive of having an athletic quarterback.
You did hold them to a field goal, 3 points, but we would see actually from Daniel Sams his ability to run and throw. They got 2 more touchdowns in the first quarter. He threw one to David Bush, and then their second quarterback, Tyler Bolting, had a touchdown throw as well. So 17-0 first quarter. I think people watching the game around the nation, following it, are thinking, well, here goes McNeese at home against, a first-year Southland team. What was going through your mind? 17-0, not much has gone your way in that first 15 minutes.
Well, you're just wanting something good to happen. We know good things are going to happen, and at some point, whether it is a big run, a big throw and catch, something positive to happen, because we were 3 and out, and then we look up and it's 17-0. So finally, some good things started happening, and we ended up playing okay. Offensively, I don't know that we scored enough points to be able to stay in a game with a team like that, but boy, our defense sure got after them and forced turnovers, so that was a really good thing.
Let's talk about those turnovers, because it's not often that you win a turnover battle by 5. You took the ball away 6 times, Coach, and there are giveaways and there are takeaways. I thought, by and large, your team had takeaways. Let's take a look at one of them here. It's our play of the game, and it's Team Justin teaming up to force this first turnover. Justin Stevens gets pressure on the quarterback, and any quarterback, when he's got somebody breathing down his neck, is going to be a little less accurate, fluttery ball after getting hit, and there's the other Justin Stewart, who gets the pick.
Sure, and hit him right in the chest with it, and I thought he was going to score it first, but they got some good recovery speed on offense, but that's one of my favorite plays all year, because we pressured the quarterback, forced him into a bad throw, we pick it off, and at the end of the play, even one of our defensive guys has 2 hands on the ball, and we're protecting the ball, and that made me happy as a head coach there.
6 takeaways overall, and you would score 17 points off of those 6 turnovers. You mentioned you needed something good to happen. One of the first good things to happen to your team was an 18-yard run by DeAndre Brown. Deep in your own territory, get you out with just a little bit of room to breathe, and you get a big double-digit yard play, and that would typify what we would see all night from DeAndre Brown for the third time this season, and he's missed a couple of games even. He goes over the 100-yard mark, and, Coach, to me, when you do it at all, it's impressive, but when you do it against a team like McNeese State, on the road in their place, cowbells going back and forth, that's even more impressive to me.
Yeah, it is, and DeAndre is learning more and more about our offense. He's getting more and more in a groove. He feels good physically. You know, he missed a couple of games with a bum knee, but during those 2 weeks, he wasn't taking hits. He is healthy right now, and he feels good. So we're gonna need him tonight, you know, against Sam Houston, and I'll be shocked if he doesn't go out and have a really good game.
So DeAndre Brown, 109 yards. His father, Eric, at ACU, a running back in the late 80s, his career best was 111. So we notified DeAndre of that this week. And
I may text his dad before the game and go, you know what, it's been good,
Yeah.
but I think DeAndre's about
it's time to get that other Brown ahead of the other one. Coach, you're down 31-6 after they score in the third quarter. And all of a sudden, you begin to get turnovers by the bunches. And then you start putting the ball in the end zone. DeAndre gets in the end zone. Then Keith Barnett, who hadn't played in a couple of games, scoops up, actually forces a fumble, picks it up, almost gets into the end zone. You score to DeMarcus Thompson. Was there a point in the fourth quarter at which you went from, okay, the math really doesn't look very good for us, we're down 31-6, to all of a sudden, wait a second, there's still 5 minutes to go, we're down 11, we're getting the ball back?
Sure.
Did your entire mindset change at some point?
Yeah, you always have to, because I tell our guys, we're never really out of a game. 31-6 that's pretty bleak, but when you start getting turnovers and you can put one in the box, things start changing very, very quickly. And that game got interesting toward the end, and they got a little bit uncomfortable. And if we would have made a couple more plays, we'd have had a chance. But in the future, I'm saying we're going to make those plays.
Well, and it should be pointed out, you're making those takeaways, you're getting those takeaways against their first team guys.
That's right.
It's not as if they were trying to coast into those final few minutes. So 31-20, the final score there. When we come back on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll take a spin around the rest of the ASU sports world at the JMC Network Sports Desk. But as we go to break, take a look at scores from last week in the Southland Conference and take special note there of Northwestern State's 31-27 victory over ASU's opponent today, Sam Houston State. Glad you're with us.
Defense has repeatedly played tough this season, including the 6 turnovers from McNeese last Saturday. 2 of the core guys in this potent defense are linebacker Justin Stevens and defensive back Justin Stewart. They are also both in their last season to play in Wildcat jerseys. I found out more about how the Justins have remained solid throughout many changes in ACU football. You've both been here for a while, so let's first go back and talk about what led each of you to come to ACU.
For me, I had a few offers from other schools that were in the same conference, but just coming here, I could tell that the school is really different. And I got a really different vibe from the coaches than from all the other schools. I could tell that they cared about me more as a man and as a person than just a football player. And going to visit the other schools, it kind of seemed like they only focused on football. While here, I feel like they focus on life after football a lot more than other schools do. So that played a large role in why I decided to come to ACU.
I agree with everything what Stu said. Tore my knee up senior year in high school, and then people started like dropping me off the recruiting board and stuff like that. But the only school that kept calling me was Abilene Christian. Granted, my dad played here a long time ago, so that's kind of why I ended up here at ACU.
One of the biggest changes happened last year and is still happening this year, moving to Division I. How exciting was that? But also challenging for you guys, because your first year here, you would have been with the playoff team, and now not being eligible for postseason. So how does that?
For me, it's been a really exciting change. We get to do a lot of more things than we did back in D2. Like we get to play at bigger venues. I mean, we played at Cowboys Stadium when we were D2, but we got to play in Atlanta, and like we're getting to fly a lot more this year, and it's just nice to play. I won't say more meaningful games, but you're playing against bigger competition, and you get to see just really how you measure up compared to those teams. Because back in the Lone Star, we were, top dog, winning all the games. It almost came pretty easy, but now you can really see what you're going up against and what's really out there. as opposed to what we were used to before.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
And everyone talks about it, the difference that ACU and Coach Collums and the whole coaching staff, a different mindset. Going out into the real world scarily soon, what's the biggest thing you've learned?
It's you know, how to handle our own business and how to be a father. And what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They prepared us, like I said before, they prepare you for life after football. So being here, you get so much more than just schematics and trying to make you a better football player. I feel like once I leave here that they really did help me prepare for life after football, because there's always life after football regardless of if it's after high school, after college, if you go to the NFL, any of that, there's always life after football. So I feel like they've done a really good job of preparing us to go out into the real world and be good citizens, good fathers, good husbands, things like that.
Now looking on the flip side, what do you hope you leave behind here?
I just hope to be remembered, I guess. I hope to be an example. I hope that when young guys come through and I'm not here anymore, that some of the guys that are young now will be like, oh yeah, when Justin Struve was here, he played hard, or he knew the plays, or when Coach Doolan told us to do something, he was telling us to do it too. I just hope to be remembered as a leader and a guy who played hard for his team, really. That's, at the end of the day, that's what I want to be remembered as.
Guy that fought, you know, didn't matter what score it was. You know, we were down 31-6 at McNeese last game, and, you know, the defense was still playing, you know, forced, you know, probably about 3 turnovers after that, helped us get 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So that's definitely how I want to be remembered, as a guy that just never quit and never gave up. And I think that goes pretty well with our story here as a defense, as a team as a whole.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the Justins finish out this season. For more ACU sports, here's Hannah Little.
Thanks, Shara. The women's soccer team lost 1-2 against Texas A&M Corpus Christi last weekend. The team then turned around and played University of the Incarnate Word and tied 1-1 as the game went into 2 overtime periods. The Wildcats currently stand number 5 in conference as they close out the season this weekend at home. The Wildcats will take on Lamar University and McNeese State. Head coach Casey Wilson talks about how the last games are wrapping up at home this weekend.
You know, we've been playing well at Shotwell, and I think, you know, lately it seems like a lot of teams in our conference have been playing well at home, but I'm excited about, you know, playing in front of our fans this weekend in our field and our territory, and I think that that'll definitely, you know, kind of lift our spirits and give us an advantage.
The tennis team competed in the ITA Texas Regional Championships last weekend in College Station. The team took home 17 total victories. Senior G. Gesser and sophomore Nico Agritelli highlighted the weekend as the duo made it all the way to the main draw quarterfinals. For the women's side, first-round wins were made by freshman Lucille Potier and junior Casey Hermsdorf. Senior Brittany Reed advanced all the way to the quarterfinals in the consolation draw, as well as several others. The tennis team will finish off its season in 2 weeks for the Grand Canyon Invitational. The golf team finally wrapped up its final tournament of the fall season under first-year head coach Tom Shaw. The tournament was held at New Mexico State University as the Wildcats tied for 7th place. Tom Shaw sums up how the fall season has been for his new team.
Reception's been good from players, fans alike. I've been very encouraged by that. There's support here. I think they were wanting to see a vision, and I'm still trying to sell that vision, especially to recruits, donors, boosters, fans. Here's where we're going to go. We have big dreams, and we're going to get there.
That's all for this week. Thank you for watching the JMC Network Sportscast. See you next week. I'm Hannah Little.
When we come back, we'll discuss how the Wildcats can claw their way through at Sam Houston State. Stay with us on the Ken Collums Show.
Welcome back to the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. Take a look at today's schedule around the Southland Conference, brought to you by University Park Apartments. Coach, how about this game? Southeastern Louisiana at Stephen F. Austin. 14 straight wins for the Lions, the defending conference champions. You talked to your old boss, Clint Conk, who's now at Stephen F. He's mighty impressed with Southeastern, like pretty much everybody is.
Yes. Southeastern's a quality team. They've got twitchy guys, and Coach Conk, I visited with him last week, and it's like, boy, they've got their hands full. Very similar to K-State, he mentioned. So not good for the rest of the conference.
You don't play them this year. That's okay with you, right?
That's right. I'm good.
You got your hands full with today's opponent, Sam Houston State. So, Coach, let's talk about ACU versus Sam. It is the 21st meeting between these two schools, but it's the first time that you've met Sam Houston State in 30 years. This is a team that is accustomed to winning, especially of late. 3 consecutive years in the FCS playoffs. In 2 of those years, they went all the way to the championship game before falling to North Dakota State, who's now won 3 consecutive FCS titles. But a weird year for Sam Houston State. They're 3-4. Last week was one of the few close games they've played. They've either won big or lost big. What do you make of what you've seen of their season so far?
Well, the first thing you notice is that, well, the first thing you know just from their past is they're a quality team. They've got a lot of depth. They're built for long-term success throughout a season, and you do that through depth. You look at them and you try to find a weakness. You look at their offense. All right, surely we've got some matchups there we can win, and no, they're pretty solid there. And then you look at their defense, and their D-line's maybe the best in the league. So, all right, I don't know that we'll have just any major glaring matchups there. And you look at the kicking game. Surely their snapper, their holder, their kicker. And what you find, that's a long way of saying, you know what, they don't have a lot of weaknesses. And they're a solid team, and they've been a solid team for a long time. And when you see backups covering kicks, covering punts, on punt, trying to block punts on punt return, you know that you can rest your starters, because you can't lose those snaps on special teams. Those are absolutely critical. You're not going to put somebody out there that's not ready, but they have enough depth to be able to rest their starters a lot of times, and that's good. And you see that, and that's the kind of depth that we're trying to get to. And you can't just really try harder in recruiting to do that. It takes time, and we're on the right track.
All right, we saw last week how versatile Daniel Sams, the quarterback at McNeese, is. And the quarterback, Jared Johnson, for Sam Houston State is a lot alike. Does it maybe help that your team just played someone so similar?
I think so. The first time you see anything, whether it's a 99-mile-an-hour fastball, it's going to be like, whoa, okay, that, I'll be a little bit more ready for it next time, because you can't simulate that in practice. And so this week, yes, we'll be better prepared. Now, the bottom line is we still have to make plays when we're in the right position. So Jared can throw it, he can run it. He was a little bit off last week against Northwestern, and that was probably one of the reasons that they didn't get beat. In this league, if you don't have good quarterback play, a guy that is extremely accurate with people hanging all over him, you're not going to win, and you're not even going to have a chance to win. So with him, we got to put pressure on him, and hope he's a little off a little bit, and we'll get after him.
Let's go the other side of the ball. Your offense against the Sam Houston State defense. Last week, Parker McKenzie, 15 of 30 against a very good McNeese State defense. When you look at the Sam Houston State defense, the first thing that jumps out at you is their front, their defensive front. It's awfully special, isn't it?
Oh, their D-line, they're all big, strong, twitchy. The guys behind them are still big, and they're still strong, and there's a reason they played in the national championship game for 2 years. It starts with D-line play. That is the number one thing in the game of football is your D-line. It better be right. You better have a lot of those guys. And notice that's the first thing we went after last year. We're recruiting a lot of those guys, and we've got some depth. We've got to develop them. But when you look at Sam Houston's defense, they are similar to McNeese. They're not quite as close to the ball as McNeese, but that doesn't mean they're not as aggressive. Those guys get after quarterbacks from top to bottom. I don't care who they've played. They've got after their quarterback. They're really good against the run, and they're a pretty balanced defense. They blitz quite a bit, but they don't blitz all the time. They'll bluff you. They're coached well, and the thing is their season's been up and down this year, and it's a new coach down there. Coach Keeler's new, and he's a quality coach. He won a ton of games as a head coach, but he and his staff are trying to still get to know those guys. Because through the ebbs and flows of a season, you learn guys' boundaries, and you learn what they can handle, and you know when to back off, and he'll probably admit that. It's just, we're learning our guys, and once they get it figured out, and when they play well, they're really good. Yeah.
All right, it's a tough run of games, and injuries are going to happen. It's been 2 straight games without Lynn Grady and also Rob Boyd. And is there anyone that was injured against McNeese that will also be out against Sam Houston State?
Well, William Moore and Cam Briscoe will not play. They're 2 of our DNs that won't play this week. But we've got Lynn Grady back. and he's one of my favorite guys to watch. We've talked about him on this show over and over. He is almost 100% healthy, enough for us to put him out there and him to feel really good. So I'm ready, and we need Rob Boyd back. He missed last week, and I mean he's a solid guy. And against the run, you need guys that are going to be technically sound. One thing that we were probably exposed last week from is when you play against good people, you can't just simply try harder. I'm going to try harder to beat this guy. It doesn't work. That guy's really, really good. And a lot of times when you try, the harder you try, the more you'll take a wrong step or you won't do things exactly right. You have to take a step back and use discipline. Trust your training and do things technically sound. That's how you beat good people.
Rob Boyd goes back to Sam Houston, who originally recruited him and brought him in. Right? He was a red shirt there.
It'd be a good trip for him, huh?
That'll be good. Hey, here's a stat that you can use with your team to inspire them. ASU has not lost to Sam Houston State in their last 6 trips to Huntsville. Now, the last one was in 1983, probably when their parents were in high school or junior high.
Yes, very useful information.
I'm here for you.
I'll use that in pregame.
All week, yeah, great. Well, go get them out there today.
Okay.
So it's ASU against Sam Houston State, 3 o'clock kickoff. Lance Fleming and I will have the broadcast on the ASU Sports Network pregame show at 2:30. That's 98.1 FM, The Ticket in Abilene and around the world on acusports.com. Should be a good one. For junior Shara Niemirowski and for the head coach Ken Collums, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching the Ken Collums Show presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. Enjoy the game today, and we'll see you right back here next week.